and welcome to the introductory video for the Resume Doctors on a video series about resumes, cover letters, interviewing, all things related to the job search. Today we're actually going to be going over kind of a resume walkthrough, a little bit of each section of a resume, what to include, what not to include, maybe some dispel some common myths. Okay. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. Alright, so the first section that we want to talk about is the contact information part. Alright, that includes things like the name here. Okay, so things to think about. You want to be aware of your online presence, and what I mean by that is how common is your name, and when people type it in, what do they find? Are they able to have easy access to your Facebook page? You have to think about these things if you have some negative or at least some questionable, let's say, things out there. You want to make sure that you have a good online social presence. On the flip side, if you do have that strong social presence and you have things like LinkedIn, you want to make sure, obviously, that you're using the same name. So John, not Jonathan. Or if you have a junior, not the senior, or however that works out for you, making sure that everything matches across the board. The biggest part of working on a resume is making sure that everything is uniform. So that means not only the style here, but also people being able to find information out about you. You're putting it all out there. In most cases nowadays, you're going to be applying online, putting the information in to countless types of applications that have their ways of getting that information. So having all of that in mind, even if it does sound a little bit cynical, you still want to be a little bit cautious, and that's where I come up with the next part here, the city and state. So I've seen a lot of people that they actually have their full-on address there with the apartment number or street address, their mailing address, zip code. I think it's really unnecessary. Like I said, you're going to be filling out applications, whether in paper or online, so you're going to be including that information to the employer most times anyway. When you're just emailing out a resume, for me at least, especially when I'm working on sites, Craigslist, kind of blind leads, you don't necessarily want to include the address along with the employment history and all of that information. So you have to be careful. So city and state, it lets the employer know the region that you're in, generally how long. If you're kind of in an out of town area where it can be questionable with your address, you're going to want to include maybe next to here somewhere the cities that you're willing to go to, the cities that you're willing to travel to. A lot of people don't know. For 50 miles might be close for some people. You just never know. Okay, so moving along here, so the next bits of information here, you got the phone number and you have the email. Basically, this is just saying what's the easiest and fastest way to get a hold of you, making sure that the phone number is 24/7 available to be picked up by you if they can call and offer you the job right away. Same thing with the email. If they were to email you and say, here's the next step on your application, here's what you need to do, can you check that regularly? Making sure that you have those two things down makes you avoid a lot of hassles later on. Okay. All right, so we're going to move right along here. So the next section is going to be the skills section. Now this also goes along with an objective or possibly even a profile summary. Okay. Now this one doesn't include that, and I'll tell you why. Personally, it's very difficult to find some good objective if you have not as much experience, and a profile summary does require a little bit more experience. So I personally don't like including an objective on most of the resumes. Again, just because when we try and think of ourselves as human resources people, the floods of emails that they must get, especially if they have anything to do with Craigslist or some of the bigger websites where they're receiving hundreds of emails throughout an application process, the amount of objectives that sound something similar to talking about their education and how they're looking for a growing company. Maybe not using those specific words, but words that have that same kind of emptiness to them that don't really mean anything in the grand scheme of what this person can actually do for a company. So now that I've completely downplayed that, what I will say is that if you can come up with something creative that does showcase your abilities, absolutely include it in. I think it would be a joy for somebody to read it and go, wow, okay, this really describes something, and it sets somebody apart from all the just bland ones. If you do have more experience, you can put something more into creative words. Not just talking about just the skills here, putting it into sentences. Having a professional summary more aptly describes what you can do. And again, that comes along with just the amount of experience that you have. This particular resume has their skills in a bulleted format with just 2 or 3 words. It does include a variety of types of skills. So we have some hard skills and soft skills. So you may ask, what do you mean by that? Okay. The hard skills, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a specific job. So let's say your job is to make widgets. Well, your ability and your knowledge of making those widgets is a hard skill. You may be able to take that if you're looking for another job making widgets somewhere else, but you wouldn't necessarily include that if you're changing industries. Okay? Now, the opposite to that, or the reverse side of that, would be your soft skills, or I should say just another skill, is your soft skills. And what those are things like, here we go, creativity and curiosity, good writing ability, leadership abilities, great team member. And while I won't say if I necessarily agree or disagree with the layout and the way that I should say the wording of these, I will say that they are part of the soft skills, things that you can take with you from any job, whether you are working as a cashier at McDonald's or working as a car salesman. There are certain things that you just take with you inherently, whether you are working in IT, whether you're working in education. Being able to communicate with other employees, with customers, with students, however it goes, those are all transferable. So really either soft or transferable skills. That's what all is going to be included in here. One thing to keep in mind when looking at this resume as we go over it, there's a lot of things that are preferences when it comes to resumes. People can have two resumes that look differently that can still be both considered good resumes. A lot of what we're going to be talking about has to deal with what jobs you're applying to and how much experience and education you have. So again, keep that in mind. So again, this particular person doesn't have really a long list of skills. Another way that you can do that is if you wanted to have a resume with less sections down here, and you wanted to kind of make sentences more of your skills. Okay. Now again, this particular resume is a chronological resume. So this is for people who have a considerable amount of experience, maybe not necessarily too much, but that don't have too many gaps, or that do have some experience. So you can see this goes from 2013 2006, so recommended about 7 to 10 years. Okay, so a lot of the experience here is listed under the jobs, and that's pretty typical for a chronological resume. So the skill section is a little bit smaller just because so much of the description is left under the experience. Now you can see if you have more or less, I should say, more employment gaps here, if you have less job experience or even no experience, if most of your experience comes from your education, you're going to want to have a bigger skill section. And that's just because you're going to want to fill the page first of all, and you're going to have different skill sets. Obviously people that have working knowledge about something, depending on the field of course, are going to have different experiences than somebody who's handling an educational experience, I should say. Okay, so keeping those things in mind, you're going to want to expand the skills section. So that may mean that you are writing up full sentences up here under the skills section, and kind of doing the things that are listed here, and relating them, or finding things that you can write about that deal with maybe volunteer experience, education experience, things that you can solidly back up that you can put on your resume. Okay, so that, including with the objective and the profile summary kind of make up the second section. Alright, so we touched on it a moment ago, but this is the professional experience area. Okay, so there's going to be some main factors or main points that we want to cover no matter what format we have, no matter what order we're going to put this in, they got to be there. Okay, so the first one is the name of the company, your school, business, whatever it is, wherever you're working, that's going to go somewhere. Okay, again, we're going to have the location. For this purpose, we're going to keep it city and state. We don't need to put the full address on there. Again, that's usually left for the application. Okay. The next part, the job title. What did we do there? Alright, now you'll notice some people don't put the actual job title they have, and for the most part I'm okay with this, as long as it's not too cheesy, over the top, obviously made up jargon that you want to avoid. You can still be creative, and as long as it's completely honest about your job duties, I think that you can kind of go a little bit crazy there and have some fun with it. Okay, but again, not being over the top, but still detailing what you've done there. All right, and then the last point, of course, is the dates that we've worked there. All right, so for example, most people I've seen have just the years. Depending on how long you've worked there, it may just mean the months. Eventually, most people ask on an application for the actual day, if you still keep that information. So just have that in mind if you need to have that on record if they ask for it. But I think you can get away with, especially if you have a couple years, and with just the years there. Alright, so again, this person has chosen to have a little bit smaller skills section and place more of their job duties and such underneath here. So again, while I won't get into whether I necessarily agree or disagree of these being good points, we'll definitely go into that in a subsequent video. I will say that having gone through this resume, that I do like some of the ways that they explain some of their job duties. I think one of the best things that you can do is looking out and actually doing during your job search, tailoring your resume each separate time to that particular job. I know that a lot of people feel like their resume never gets tracked. It's really about the follow-up process, but that really starts with you being creative enough to change some of the words, see what they're actually looking for, making sure that you have that matching experience, and treating your resume and your past jobs as something that was really important and really special. A lot of times I'll see resumes that have two similar types of jobs. In particular, I saw one resume that underneath their job title section, it was just something as bland as saying customer service. And they had another job title that had some very glamorous way of describing basically a retail clothing salesperson. The way that they even described that their skills underneath, it was very vastly different, describing like things like picking up boxes. That was something that was a skill listed under their resume section here. And then under the glamorous job, it was something that you wouldn't even think of to describe working in a clothing store. Okay, so these are the way that you treat what you did at those jobs is how employers should be expected to view it. So you want to treat every single job that you've had very special and be able to use it as a reference. And that gets down to when we can actually start to say some of these things here and people can back us up on that. Okay, so let's just look at a few for example here. Okay. Alright, train new hires. We'll go down to the business here. Train new hires on day-to-day workflow, proper utilization of multiple computer systems, and correct procedures for different sales processes. Okay, so some of the words, it just kind of seems a little bit jargony to me. Again, it depends on what position that you're going for. If you're going for a management position, obviously you want to talk about how you were able to train people. That would be a very important part about your job. Obviously, that's going to be, if not the first thing you're going to do, then very quickly you're going to have to train new people. Okay, that's another one here. Make outbound cold sales calls to prospective financial customers. Okay, again, so we're looking at different. What would be some of the things that we can improve here. So first of all, when we're looking at the verbs and how to phrase the past jobs, we're talking about this is something that you did in the past, 2010 to 2012. So first of all, we want to make sure that these are all past tense. Okay, just makes it easier to read, makes it all flow together. Again, this is what we're talking about. Going from the top all the way down to the bottom, having it all spaced out, having there enough white space in between so that there's a flow. It doesn't seem like a big block of text that you have to take all at one time. You have to just make sure that the human resources person or the hiring manager's eyes are able to just kind of flow through here. Okay. So again, we're just talking about a few examples here, but your mileage is going to vary depending on what type of position that you're going to be applying for. But again, I highly suggest when you're looking for the new jobs and you're out there and you look under what the responsibilities and duties are for their job postings. See what words and keywords they're using. That's what they're looking for. That's why their human resources staff spent the money to make that posting. Somebody high up in human resources made a decision to post exactly those words. They are counting on somebody to fill that role. Does your resume match up? That's what somebody at their company is thinking. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the skills and responsibilities and duties. And again, this is a very brief summary here. We're going to be going into more detail about what specifically to write, how to change it to more an accomplishment resume if you are going for a management or higher ranking position, to give more solid numbers. But that's kind of a brief overview. Alright, so as we move down, we're going to the second page here. And again, I don't really mind the second page just because so much of what we do now is digital. It just doesn't create the same distractions here. But we're looking at the education. So keeping in mind the same thing we did with the past experience, we want to look at some expected information. So we have the name of the school. We have city and state. Again, don't need the full address. For this particular person, this particular resume, they say, hey, expected completion, fall 2015. Okay. So you can put something like this if it is in the future, or you can put the amount of credits that you may have taken. That would go well with the amount of coursework and what particular classes. Again, this is going to change coursework. It's going to change depending on what job, as long as you have taken those classes. Obviously we're being honest, but we still want to show ourselves in the best light, especially in education. It gives us a chance to stand out. If you have completed, then you want to put the month and year that you did complete. Underneath we have the degree. Okay. And additionally, you can put a GPA, if you feel that it is warranted. Again, with like this resume, having any coursework that's relevant to the job that you're pursuing, any particular activities or clubs. This person had under their high school some activities here, so you can do that for the college as well. Okay. One particular area of note, generally if you have higher education past high school, then you can leave off the high school. This just only really exists to date you. So if that is a problem, you're noticing people may not be hiring you and you just don't know why, and if it's because of a lack of experience or because of your age and you're giving it away right here with your high school graduation date, think about that. That could be a reason why. So again, it's really a preference if you want to include it or not, but if you have had some struggles and nothing else seems to be the difference, something to think about. Okay. So the last section that we're going to talk about is the references. Generally, you want to keep these off of your resume, again, for the same reasons. You don't want your references, telephone numbers, and names getting out there for people just to call randomly. You always want to be able to give them a heads up on who's going to be calling. And again, most employers are going to ask for this information on a formal application, so you'll have plenty of time to address that. Some people don't even have this anywhere on their resume. It's just kind of expected and accepted. Okay. Just to kind of touch on some other things here, again, I particularly like resumes that are very, if not symmetrical, very boxy, if you cannot tell. Now that's not to say that they're the only way to do things, but I think that the flow, the amount of white space, this particular resume I could probably do without some of these lines here that causes some additional distractions, but in some areas it does cause it to stand out a little bit more among the different sections. And I only say these things just as somebody who has a little bit of experience, not only with hiring, but also helping people to get hired. So you can kind of see my thought process as I'm going through the resume as a whole, now that we've kind of gone through it piece by piece. So again, a lot of white space, and what I mean by white space is like this block of white space here, how it is able to separate even this amount right here. This person has chosen to include not only the place that they work, the location, job title, and date, but I changed it here for privacy concerns. But this is a little bit description of where they worked. Whether it be their place in the industry, what industry it belongs to, just something to give the person some background. You're expected to do the research. Give them a chance. Don't expect them to do the research on your company. Give them a little bit of a cheat sheet on you. And again, even the small amounts here, just I like that it's able to be read, I think, very well. It doesn't overwhelm the reader. They could maybe cut down 1 or 2 bullet points in the middle here. Again, when you're thinking of somebody in human resources, they have to read a lot of resumes a day. Or even if it's just one hiring manager that gets assigned to check those emails. Have some mercy on his soul that he has to read through all of these. Okay, so we could probably take out a few here, but other than that, I mean, there's a good amount of space. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about when I say white space, just the amount of flow that there is to the overall piece. Okay. Well, I thank you for joining me today. We're going to be releasing some further videos in regards to breaking down these even more, some different types of resumes. Again, this was a chronological resume that we went over today. All right. So again, thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.